And again, I'm just taking them in the order in which they are displayed. I can't get it to display either by likes, by most recent. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they do it. I just know they do it. So top fan Dave Olson's got a little diamond by his icon, and he says, "Hi Bill, I love the Apollo show, and I was wondering if you'd encountered this story in your research. It seems that Eisenhower and others deliberately slowed the progress of our first satellite. The theory was if we sent a satellite into orbit first, the Soviets were likely to raise hell about how we weren't respecting any other nation's territorial rights. But if the Soviets went first, they were certain to ignore any other nation's territorial rights, and thus the precedent would be set that anyone can send anything into orbit. What does that say about colonizing the solar system? Does Earth law have any validity outside of the atmosphere?" Well, those are two different questions there. I've never heard anything about anybody delaying the launch of the satellite. From everything that I was able to gather about the period, we were just had the living daylights shocked out of us by Sputnik, and put the fast spin on the Vanguard program. That blew up on the pad. Von Braun comes in and says, "Mr. President, I can get you something up there in 2 months." And so all of a sudden you got Explorer, 30 pounds, and then you got the Grapefruit satellite, which is cool looking satellite, I have to say. But it's about that big. So I don't really believe that there was anybody sitting on this technology waiting to go. It certainly doesn't seem like we had stuff in the barn just ready to run with. It sure sounded to me like full-on panic. And I think that's probably more likely. Now, the other part of the question is kind of interesting as well, and that is, do the laws of the Earth have anything to do in outer space? And let me see. I got to arrange my freaking windows here so I can see all of these many things and jack into all of this wisdom here. Okay, come on. All right, here we go. Does Earth law have any validity outside of the atmosphere? No. I mean, really, if you really think about it, if you have a law and that law is unenforceable, unenforceable, then it's not a law. If you can't enforce it, it's not a law. And I don't see any way to enforce mining rights on the moon or anything like that. I will tell you, though, and this really does annoy me, if we were to say that that there was an asteroid out there that was made out of solid platinum or something like that, and we decided to go out and start mining it, there would be people on Earth who would be protesting this. And not just because of the people coming, but there would be people protesting the pristine surface and who are we to do all of this nonsense. I'm sure there's a lot of people that would have a real problem with ownership of the moon. But again, if I buy property on the moon and the people that sold it to me are ready to help me defend it, it doesn't really matter, honestly, what everybody else down on Earth says about it. It's just a question of can you enforce the law? That is somewhat related to the argument I made before about China and America, where, yes, China puts out far more huge numbers of well-educated people, and our numbers of educated people get smaller and smaller. But if you were to take the sharpest, 500 nails in the box, I think our 500 nails would be better than their 500 nails. And since you can't really put billions of people into space in the foreseeable future, I comfort myself with this thought, whether it's a delusion or not. So that's actually an interesting question. What do you do if somebody? I mean, look, I really do believe it's a finders keepers kind of thing, and I know for a fact that people would start complaining about, well, this company's up there mining all this mineral wealth, and it's the product, it's the property of the entire human race, and who are they to make money on? Blah 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 blah. If you want to mine asteroids, go do it. I'm really at that point now, and I've been at that point for a while. I grew up with the whole United Nations kind of thing, man from uncle, and UN missions to Mars, and all of this stuff where all of humanity is going to get together and they're going to, it just doesn't work that way. The thing that I expected was that the United Nations would bring other nations up to Western standards, and it's just the opposite. It's pulled it down. So as far as I'm concerned, now the only problem here, Dave, is that if you go into space and you do what you want to in violation of whatever laws they make on the Earth, there's not a damn thing they can do to you while you're up there, but they can definitely do something to you when you come back, and they certainly can do something to you in terms of your base back on Earth. One of the premises I had for the Aurora show, which really suffered from the Aurora script, which got nothing to do with the Aurora Republic. I wrote this back in 2005. But it was a manned mission to Jupiter set in the very near future. And there's a singular problem with that script, and that is that there really is no antagonist. The antagonist was Jupiter itself and the difficulty of the mission, but I had to put some kind of spur to it. And the spur that I put to it was that this thing starts out with this experimental gas core nuclear rocket that explodes, releases radiation into the Mojave Desert. Doesn't really hurt anybody, but releases radiation. And then all of the weenies in the government immediately are planning to shut this thing down, and they're going to shut it down at the next Congress when they get the votes. And basically, they have to launch this mission before they're ready, because the only defense they think they have, meaning the guys who are launching the mission, the only defense they think they have is just say, look, if you shut us down now, those people are going to die. So I don't know. There's probably better ways to do it, but that was the best I could come up with. I think it's going to be an issue, and I think I'm going to live to see it be an issue. But really, it's like when we were doing the Apollo thing that you mentioned, and people having a problem with Buzz Aldrin, having communion on the moon. I know the moon is especially sacred to Muslims. That Allah is actually a derivative of it's Allah, the moon god, or whatever. But and obviously the crescent moon is their symbol. But my feeling is, if let's just say, no, who's the most likely candidate? Let's say Yemen were to put together a mission and go to the moon, and the Yemenis land on the moon, and they step out of their lander, and the first thing they say is Allahu Akbar. I'm not going to be offended by that, surprised, or in any way, offended by it. It's just, finders keepers. You got there, you can do whatever you want to. The big issue is, you really, it's so easy to think about this. I wanted to go into space my whole life, go to Mars, live on Mars, all that other stuff, live in space colonies. The reality of it is that you're basically committing yourself to live inside a 747 for the rest of your life, with a couple of occasional forays out into the surface in a suit. It is not. It's the kind of thing that sounds better, I think, than it actually plays out. Because you really are confined to a pretty small space for the foreseeable future. And while you are building something, that's great. Now, the flip side of that is you get to have something that's yours. And that is a very powerful, powerful, powerful thing. Very powerful thing. You could make a pretty good case that that space would be the ultimate place for conservatives to flee to. Well, let's just say we will retreat in that, will advance in that direction. Because it's clear to me that the easier that life gets, the stupider people get, and the stupider they get, the more they expect that all this stuff's just going to happen by magic and automatically. And if the Western frontier was a tough place to winnow out the weak and the scared, then space will do that, and it will also strike pretty hard against the stupid. It's a very, very needless to say, an extremely unforgiving environment. And I think that if you are living in space, you really cannot. You can't live on Mars and be an idiot, and you can't live on Mars and be a slacker either. That's something else too. You can't just sit there in your pressure dome while all the other people are out there, working the hydroponic farms or whatever. And that's really appealing to me, which is why I maintain, if things really go south, that the place for us to go would be Antarctica. I really believe it, absolutely believe it. And Antarctica is very tough to get to, and Antarctica is a very unpleasant place to be. I'm sure there's some very nice months in the summer, but it's dark for half the year and all of that. And you go outside, it's fatal. If you don't have the fuel running for the base, it's fatal. If you don't have your food prepared and stored, it's fatal. Trevor from Florida says also Greenland has become a possibility. Sure, why not? I think that'd be great. I think we take the flag with us, because the flag is the idea. The country's an idea. It's not a piece of property. I say we take the flag with us, and basically we look at North America as a field that has to lie fallow for a while, maybe a generation or two. And we go back and pick it up again after this idiocy burned itself out. But there really is there's no way to be a slacker or aggressively stupid in space. You don't have to be a genius, but you have to be careful, and you have to have a fundamental respect for things. And I don't think you can get really too completely high or drunk on a regular basis in space and not pay for it, at least not in the early days. But I'm going to just throw this in there because I think, to be fair to me, I haven't talked about this for a while. But one of the things that is so appealing about the Star Citizen game is that you can be looking with friends. The actual experience is a sense that you are all there together. You're talking to each other, and you can see each other on. But the thing about Star Citizen is even most of these, virtually all the planets are uninhabitable in terms of they're just moons with thin atmospheres. But there have been times, certainly during the wake that we held for our friend Bobcat several months ago, there was times you could stand up on that mountain and look around and say, if I could own this land, and in the game you will be able to. It's a real primal thing. I mean, obviously it's a virtual experience, but to stand on top of that mountain and look around at this barren but very beautiful landscape, and just say, all right, this is mine, ours, we paid for it, we're going to live the way we want to here, and we better be prepared to defend it. I don't know. There's something extraordinarily appealing about that, really appealing about it. And sometimes I poke around in the kind of the ugliest places on Star Citizen, and I think to myself, well, I wouldn't want to put down a country here, but once you look at it and said, what, it'll be ours, it's amazing, what you can do. It's amazing what you could build, amazing what you could put underground, amazing what you could construct. Look, life is about people. It really is. Life's about the people you deal with and what your home is like. I like living in Los Angeles. Certainly my wife likes living in Los Angeles. And this doesn't apply to her because she actually does a lot more social stuff than I do, because she's so beautiful and so well liked, and I'm just a curmudgeonly old bastard. But I tell myself, well, I wouldn't want to live someplace like too remote, even though I find, I'm not going to mention the place by name, but let's say there's some place out there that's kind of remote and really beautiful. I'd say to myself, I couldn't live there. I mean, I'd miss all this stuff in the city. And then I said to myself, what do you do in the city? Do you go out to the theater every night? Do you go out to these, nightclubs and events and stuff? And the answer to me is no. I'd rather live with people that I like and that I get along with, and that I don't have to explain things to, or defend things on. So I think that's the appeal of the Star Citizen thing. I know it is for those of us who are hardcore. It's just real quick. Dave Big Booty said Lubbock. I don't think we go anywhere. I don't think we can go anywhere warm, Dave. I think warm's off limits. I think warm and hot is off limits. I really do. I think it's got to be someplace cold. I don't know why I feel that, but I really do. I cannot imagine America in the jungle. I can imagine America in Antarctica and in Greenland, and I can imagine America in a lot of places, but I cannot imagine it in the jungle at all. There's just something about it. I don't know what it is, but Steve Darrow says it was growing up in Florida. And yeah, I don't know. There's something about it just seems antithetical to me. I'd far, far, far rather live in Antarctica than in Honduras, let's say. But honey, I want to reassure you that this is just speculation for the sake of the discussion. I have no plans to move to Antarctica, move the family or the cats or anything. So please don't worry about an imminent move to Antarctica. If I decide that we really should move to Antarctica, I will definitely write you a memo and keep you CC'd on it as the process develops. Anyway, this is there's this kind of this pride and ownership of things, and it really is a question of, well, it may be an airless, ice planet or a rock, but damn it, it's mine, and we all. We all live here. We're going to make it what we're going to make it. Yeah, Bo Monday says, how are you going to explain the Antarctica or bust sign on the bumper of the Camaro? See, the thing about Antarctica, too, is it's not easy to get to, and it's not easy to live there. And to me, evidence of my eyes is that the nicer the place is, the stupider people can afford to be. So anyway, I don't know. It's just thoughts that I had on that subject. So moving on.